The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. The words through which Ben Kenobi introduces the Force to a young Luke Skywalker in Star Wars A New Hope is an apt description of the Force's role in the franchise as a whole. As one of the defining world-building features of the universe, the Force has fascinating foundations and even more intriguing reimaginations and interpretations. The Force was conceived by George Lucas, born from his inquisitive mindset and anthropological education. Many others involved in Star Wars have given different insights as to its function. From a dualist moral entity to a natural force to a tool used in the reshaping of the world, the Force and its adherents, the Jedi and the Sith, have taken on many forms over many entries in the Star Wars franchise. Welcome to our second video on the inspirations of Star Wars, focusing on the inspirations and philosophies of the Force, the Jedi and the Sith. Ultimately, this sci-fi saga is rooted in the real world by the events and groups that inspired it, but a fantasy based in reality needn't travel beyond our time and galaxy. In fact, we've all the basis for heroics we need with our sponsor, Everyday Heroes. This is a tabletop RPG system for creating legends of the modern age. Craft an adventure starring unlikely heroes fresh off the street. For these adventures you'll need farmers, scientists, drivers, teachers, priests, rich playboys and penniless students and many more, all with skills and rules detailed in the game. What kind of adventure will it be? Probably one filled with explosive action. Everyday Heroes aims to reproduce action movie scenarios with your own personal twists. The core book comes with reams of useful ideas and data, including details on how to use loads of equipment and vehicles, and what kinds of challenges you're likely to battle on a quest to defeat the modern menace of your world. But you don't always need to come up with your own world. Everyday Heroes can be expanded with cinematic scenario books that use the game's rules to play out an epic rendition of various IPs, with thematic special rules and considerations. Based on the D20 Modern system, Everyday Heroes brings a 5th edition compatible update for those embarking on action-packed quests in the modern era. It's got a perfect score on drive-thru, and it's easy to pick up if you've played any D&D before. Check it all out via our link in the description. To understand the Force's origins, we must go back to the 1960s, when George Lucas was an anthropology student. The 1960s were a time when New Age philosophies, inspired by Eastern religions like Buddhism and Taoism, were gaining popularity in the West. Indeed, Taoist, Buddhist or Shintoist inspirations feature heavily in the inner workings of the Force. To see the similarities, let us compare the words of a Jedi Master to a Taoist sage side by side. First, let us hear what Master Yoda has to say about the Force. "My ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the Force around you, here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere." Yoda's words evoke a deep spirituality, invoking a similar feeling to this passage attributed to Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching. When the intelligent and animal souls are held together in one embrace, they can be kept from separating. When one gives undivided attention to the vital breath and brings it to the utmost degree of pliancy, he can become as a tender babe. The Tao produces all things and nourishes them. It produces them and does not claim them as its own. It does all and yet does not boast of it. It presides over all and yet does not control them. This is what is called the mysterious quality of the Tao. The breath mentioned in the Tao Te Ching is interesting, for it refers to a concept in Chinese philosophy known as qi, which can be summarized as rhythmic breath. Qi has parallels to the Force, which, like it, is described as a rhythm going through all living beings. However, this does not make the Force a one-to-one rewording of Taoist philosophy. Ultimately, the Force is abstract and non-denominational, and does not fully align with any real-world philosophy. Indeed, another source of inspiration that Lucas drew from when shaping the Force was the 1963 abstract montage collage film 2187. In it, the film's director, Roman Kreuter, remarks that many people feel that in the contemplation of nature and in communication with other living beings, they become aware of some kind of force or something behind this apparent mask which we see in front of us, and they call it God. Lucas took from this idea, adding other religious traditions to the mix, resulting in the creation of the Force, as it is seen in Star Wars: A New Hope. That is why the Force has so many aspects, as a form of power, as a natural life force, and as a moral principle. The Force has taken many iterations in the Star Wars universe. There are 4 main ways the Force is presented in Star Wars media. One is the Force as power. This is a fundamental conception often identified in the expanded universe as the physical Force. The Force is a means that Force users can use to alter the world around them, such as lifting ships, pushing droids away, and throwing lightning. Another conception is the Force as morality, and it is here that discussions about the light and dark side of the Force come to the fore. Whether one embraces the light or dark side of the Force is something interpreted as stemming from the heart of the Force user or by metaphysical forces affecting the user. The dark side of the Force bears similarities to dukkha, the Buddhist term for suffering. Like dukkha, the dark side makes people feel dissatisfied with what they have and crave for more. The dark side can also be equated to hubris from Greek tragedies, as the Sith draw upon arrogance, anger, and pride in their hungry quest for ever more power. On the other side, the light side of the Force is much closer to nirvana in Buddhism and ataraxia, the state of serene calmness described in ancient Greek Stoicism. The Jedi are meant to be selfless, kind, and detached. Morality in Star Wars is often linked to the Force, and how people are attached to things or not. This is the arc of, for instance, Anakin Skywalker on his path to becoming Darth Vader. The third aspect of the Force is the Force as destiny. This form of the Force is how it traverses through time and space, and how it affects people's lives. An example of this would be how Rey and Kylo Ren are drawn to each other, or the misread prophecy of the Chosen One in the prequels. The fourth aspect of the Force is the Force as life. Essentially, it's perceiving the Force as a wellspring of life and the ecology of the galaxy. 2 interesting aspects of the Force that link to this are the Cosmic Force and the Living Force. The former is where people go after death and appear as Force ghosts, and is the wellspring of life. The latter was extolled by a Jedi as wise as Yoda, Qui-Gon Jinn. The Living Force is what unites all life in the galaxy and gives them life. In short, whether the Force in the Star Wars universe is expressed as a moral divider, an expression of physical power, a manifestation of karma, or the giver of life, it is and always has been a multifaceted concept. Having contextualized the Force itself, let us now take a deeper dive into the most iconic users of the Force, beginning with the Jedi. For a Jedi, only the light side is important. This means being in tune with life in the universe in order to cherish, nurture, and protect it. It is for this reason that the Jedi meditate so much. It both hones their connection to the Force and how it penetrates the world around them, but also makes sure to keep them in tune with their abilities. For the Jedi, peace and non-attachment are important parts of one's inner world. Attachments, whether to people or things like money, are to be discarded, for they would show a preference for parts of the world rather than the Force. The Jedi still have debates as to the nature of the Force. For instance, Qui-Gon Jinn places heavy emphasis on the living Force, devoting himself to being focused on the present. This contrasts with Yoda, who considers a more stoic approach and emphasizes looking towards the future. Much like Zen and Chan Buddhism, which emphasizes unlearning concepts that color and perfume our minds, the Jedi Code also places emphasis on a worldview centered around stoicism and non-attachment. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force. In the galaxy far, far away, the Jedi are keepers of the peace. This is one of their reasons for existing, to correct the bad and make sure the dark side does not win. The Jedi fight against the Sith and defend the weak, much like the samurai or European knights do in classical Japanese and European folklore. Sometimes, the Jedi succeeded in upholding their duty, as Rey did against Sidious in The Rise of Skywalker. Sometimes they have failed and succumbed to corruption, such as in the Knights of the Old Republic games. The Jedi Code can often be hard to uphold and seems cold and detached. Luke Skywalker is an example of this in The Last Jedi, having grown cynical about his order due to the fact that the rigid Jedi code led his father to fall to the dark side, and his own failure to stop Ben Solo from becoming Kylo Ren. However, as Master Yoda reminds him, being dogmatic is not necessarily what a Jedi is about, but that through the Force, one should care for all living beings and protect them in their role as a sage or a knight. Owning up to the failures of the Jedi and learning from them is the most Jedi thing one can do. Rey's unending faith and heterodox perspective, not too dissimilar from Qui-Gon Jinn's focus on kindness and being present, is an embodiment of what the light side is about, and how the Jedi are meant to change to move forward. Having discussed the Jedi, let's now move on to their eternal enemies, the Sith. Being the antithesis and the foil of the Jedi, the Sith are driven by passion and the self. Unlike the Jedi, who usually organize themselves into orders, the Sith usually work under the rule of two. This is because the Sith are focused on the dark side, which demands that they give in to their passions and their egos. Ideas like greed, hatred, rage, or attachment to things like power are important as driving forces for the Sith. In fact, the Sith are adaptable, as when compared to the ossified Jedi, they can hide or lie or change with the times. This is in contrast to the Jedi Order, which is prone to falling into dogmatism. It is for this reason that Darth Sidious is able to seduce Anakin by becoming a father figure to him who claims to be able to save Padme. It is also why he tries to get Luke to join the dark side by using his hatred for Darth Vader against him, and why he tries to use Rey to become more powerful than ever. Sith are drawn to one another and the dark side because they have noble or tragic ends, and the dark side is seen as the key to achieving those ends. Ultimately, the Sith are always a corrupting force. This paradoxical relationship is evident in the Sith code, which states, "Peace is a lie, there is only passion. Through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The Force shall free me." Passion and desire for either strength or power, as well as similar vices like greed or maniacal love, propel the Sith forward. This is why Master Shak Ti in The Force Unleashed remarks that the Sith always betray one another. Eventually, even other Sith can become obstacles in the search for more knowledge and power through the dark side. Chris Kempshall, who was involved in the show Rebels, outright describes the promises of the dark side as complete and utter lies. The addiction to the dark side is what eventually leads to people losing what they love, like Kylo Ren and Anakin Skywalker betraying the Jedi and killing their loved ones. The endless cycle of craving and desire leads to more power, but also causes one to lose what is human about them. While it is the Jedi that are meant to detach themselves, it is the Sith who, through their attachment, lose the ones they love, and even sometimes lose love for the ones they lose. It's a quintessential metaphor for fascism and capitalist hunger, with heavy undertones from the iconic tragedies of ancient Greek theatre, where the hubris of the Hellenistic hero always leads to divine punishment. Ironically, it is a Jedi, Master Yoda, who encapsulates the Sith's philosophy by saying, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." Jedi and Sith are not the only Force users or people who believe in the Force. Many of us have seen the Grey Jedi, who appear in several pieces of Star Wars media, such as the first Knights of the Old Republic game. The Grey Jedi are a manifestation of the frustration many Force users feel regarding the dualism of the Force. Grey Jedi are able to use both the light and dark side of the Force, utilizing the benefits of both sides without being constrained by the limitations of either. Another Force-adjacent faction in the Star Wars universe is the Guardians of the Whills, the most famous example of which is Chirrut Imwe from Rogue One. These are spiritual monks who are not Force users or members of the Jedi Order, but who worship the Force nonetheless. The Order of the Whills protects the Temple of Kyber at Jeddah, and not much else is known about them. Their mantras, like the famous "I am with the Force and the Force is with me" of Chirrut Imwe, suggest that they have a very deterministic view of the Force, believing that all that turns in the galaxy is due to the Force, and that they should follow its bidding. The main job of the Order of the Whills is protecting pilgrims on Jeddah. The most interesting deconstruction of the Force comes from a Force user in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords. That user is Kreia, also known as Darth Traya. Kreia was a Jedi who saw the rise of Darth Revan as a teachable moment and tried to study the Sith against the wishes of the Jedi Council. She then became a Sith who ended up being betrayed by her apprentices. After suffering disillusionment at the hands of both the Jedi and the Sith, she came to hate the Force, and came to the conclusion that dependence on it was a slave-like bondage that she had to sever the galaxy from. This is an intriguing form of Nietzschean philosophy. Kreia feels the Jedi are too aloof and the Sith too corrupt, and their fighting means that the Force keeps going while they die for their slavish ideologies. Like the death of God that Nietzsche describes, Kreia wants to sever the Force from the galaxy and let people make their own lives on their own rules, not those of the Force. This never comes to fruition, but is a deconstruction of the Force as an energy force or a moral principle, both for its dark side and the light, and for living against the Force's will. The Force, stemming from the Chinese Tao and reinvented in various manners, is the moral, magical, generative, and fantastical foundation of Star Wars. The Sith and the Jedi, growing out of this Force, are the poison and perfume of the flower that is the Force, and this flower has many gardeners. Whether we accept the gentle nurture of Qui-Gon Jinn's living Force, the hubristic obsession of Darth Plagueis, or the destructive nihilism of Kreia, we can all see that the Force is the source of the Star Wars universe. As fans of Star Wars, we may prefer working with its original interpretation by George Lucas in the original trilogy. We may support the existentialist reinvention of Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, or we may simply prefer to be like Chirrut Imwe, worshipping the Force and hoping we become one with it so that the Force itself may be with us. However, like any ancient tradition that has shaped culture, we must all go through the Force to understand Star Wars rather than go around it. And thus, we must all hope that Obi-Wan is right when he tells us, "Remember, the Force will be with you, always." More meta-analyses of the Star Wars universe and other sci-fi and fantasy universes are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.